first, let's start off by including Review and Preview Zone, Paul Lombardi. You can catch him on Mondays at 7 for the 3&D. Paul, how's it going?
Doing good, Hank. Right? The Mets are playing well, despite everything that's going on. It's been exciting. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm enjoying this baseball season. It's been a lot of fun, and we have a first-time guest in Review and Preview history. We got our friend John Quinn coming at us from down south in Georgia. How is it going, John?
It's going well. It's going well. How are you, Hank? How are you, Paul? Thanks for having me.
Doing pretty good, bro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Mets are looking good. Yankees, they're making some progress. It's funny, though, because I've been messing with Tom, just telling him every morning, oh, did you see they lost last night? He's not too fond of that, but it happens. You got to do what you got to do. But, all things considered, the Mets are looking pretty decent, even with all the injuries. I mean, what do they call themselves? The bench mob? They're just crushing it right now.
I got to ask, when you went to the Mets game on Monday, with the Pilar, first of all, with what happened with Pilar, obviously it was terrible, but any chirping going on wearing your Mets garb in Atlanta?
Oh, well, you know what? Less than I was expecting, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay, not bad.
I've been to a handful of Mets Phillies games and at Citi Field, to clarify, and the Phillies fans are relentless. That's their thing. That's what they're known for. They're known for being just absolutely relentless, kind of classless people. But but
to say the least,
of course, right? That's their reputation. That's their thing. But down here, I was expecting a little bit more aggression, but I kind of was met with a lot of people down in Atlanta are sort of transplants, so there were a lot more Mets fans than you would anticipate. And the people you ran into who were the Braves fans, they'd give you a side eye, but they wouldn't really say anything unless they were drunk. But I mean, you're going to run into people like that at any ballpark, But it was a little surprising. Everyone was rather cordial, which was kind of odd. I'm used to New York. I'm used to bloodthirsty.
Exactly.
Hey, no, that sounds like a fun experience. SunTrust Park's one of the newer ballparks. I haven't been there yet, but as you guys know, one of the main things on my bucket list, I want to get to every single major league ballpark. Doesn't really have to involve the Yankees in it. I just want to go there just to say I've seen them all. You know what I mean? But
right.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a lot of fun. I've seen the Yankees play in a few different series, despite seeing them in Boston a number of times. Somehow I got out of there in one piece. I think the key is don't really be too loud there. Just be yourself, enjoy the game, and then you'll get out just fine. But yeah, Philly, I'm a little antsy about going there, but I definitely would love to see there. I think is a nice ballpark.
I just want to go experience a game in Philly just for the sake of, being able to say that I did it,
No, for sure.
It's like one of those Blazing Wing shirts. It's like, oh yeah, I went to Philly and survived.
B-Dub still owes you that shirt too.
They do, and it's so. Me and Dom never forget.
Yeah, never. Oh I mean, next time before we hit up a Mets game, we're running into there and we're demanding those shirts.
I'll take one by force. I've earned it. I did the challenge.
It's about time.
It is.
Yeah,
it's
man.
Been 6 years? Longer?
It's been 6 years, yeah. Oh, my God. Ridiculous. I think it was like junior year, I think.
Yeah, it was summer between junior year and senior year, but that was unreal. You can never forget that pain.
That was classic. Classic. A little reminiscing.
Yeah, no, an awesome experience in and of itself. I got to do that too. But anyways, let's get to the Mets for a bit.
Oh yeah.
So obviously they got swept in Tampa Bay, or as I like to call that dump, the Circus 10. And you're coming off a 7-game win streak, and it was kind of surprising that they had that 3-game loss just like that after they were so hot, and seemed like a lot of bad things happened in that series. Injured players were dropping like flies, and that first game really was a disaster. Now, I heard a lot of criticism among the Mets fan base about the way that Luis Rojas handled this game. I think there were some people that said he probably should have let Peterson finish the inning, but then I also heard some people saying they should have taken him out right after that home run that he gave up. I think it was the 8th inning. What's your guys' honest take on the way Luis Rojas handled that game?
Paul, after you.
I don't think he did anything necessarily terrible. I think he's done a lot of bad things in the past. I don't think that him predicting a Peterson blow up was anything. He was rolling for most of that game too, so I don't think that was necessarily bad. I think it was we just went down. We Tampa Bay is a clutch team. We weren't, we haven't played them very much over the last couple of years. We played them a little bit last year, but we're not really familiar with them. They're the reigning AL champs, and we're beaten up. We couldn't have DeGrom pitch one of the games. It was difficult, and I think that Rojas, did his best. That's definitely. There's a lot of series that you can blame on Rojas, some poor moves and stuff, especially, first game of the season as, not playing Dom Smith and pulling DeGrom early, for instance. But I didn't really, there wasn't anything that I was really too upset about with Rojas. I think it was just the Rays kind of overpowered us. We were hurt a little bit. We were a little beaten up, and we just weren't able to catch up. Right.
I mean, and if you think about it, like, look, I understand Peterson is a relatively inconsistent guy. He'll have his moments where he's on, and when he's on, he's on. But when he is off, he can't hit a barn door from the inside, But, and I don't remember what the pitch count was at the instance where he gave up the home run. But, I mean, when you have someone who's sort of that inconsistent, and I think we can all agree that pitchers are kind of more mentally fragile than some of the other players on the field. You look at them and everything is momentum. Except for, the guys who are like Fort Knox up here, like Garrett Cole, DeGrom, Max Scherzer. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So when you have a guy who sort of teeters like that on, being not a star, but a consistently good player and being inconsistent, if he's rolling, you're only going to hurt his confidence if you pull him. Like those are leaving him in and allowing him to make that mistake. Yes, it may have cost him the game. Who's to say that it won't, be a major thing down the road if we're like a game back or something, but at the moment when you're rolling like that, and considering this is his, first full year, because I think his first year was last year in the shortened season, and you kind of got to let the guy go out there and make his own mistakes. That's the only way he's going to learn and grow and become a better player,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like a guy with his potential and with his main downfall right now is, when he starts giving up runs, he starts to implode and he starts to lose the strike zone, that kind of stuff. And the only way he's going to learn how to get out of that is by pitching through it in the majors.
Right.
He can go down to AAA and try to pitch through it, but it's not the same. That's the best way you're going to do, especially with a young pitcher.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Just because, I mean, what are you really doing for him? I mean, you could say, oh, well, the bullpen has looked a lot better this year, and to that, I would say yes, they have, except for Trevor.
For sure.
Trevor May's been super inconsistent, and he's a thorn in my side. But with the rest of them, I mean, you got Castro, you got Sean Reed Foley, you've got Diaz, who actually looks good for a change, which makes Kelenic coming up and being an absolute stud in Seattle all the more, or it lessens the blow, But
exactly,
I still think Peterson is one of those guys where you got to let him go out there and make mistakes, just because. Only way you're going to learn,
Yeah, I think Tom seems to agree with us too. Let me pull up his comment that he just made right now. He says the best ones usually push through those stretches in games when momentum isn't on their side. That's what I think makes a pitcher elite. And Tom, I definitely agree with that. I think that's probably why you want to see guys like a Jacob DeGrom or a Garrett Cole going like 7 or 8 innings, because when a team is like struggling with getting hits or like scoring, I think one of the things that usually keeps the game in their favor is a pitcher. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, but yeah, no, I definitely agree. I don't really think Luis Rojas is at fault for like the way this series happened. I think the Mets just ran into a buzzsaw. I mean, you look at the Rays right now, and it's not just the Mets. The Rays have been like just beating up on a lot of teams. They're now only a half game out of first place. They are tied with Boston in the win column, but only one game back in, as John Sterling likes to call it, the all-important loss column. And as we mentioned, even without Blake Snell and even without some of their best bullpen pieces from last year, this is still the reigning AL champions. They're still going to be a threat, and you can never count Tampa out. Trust me, as a Yankee fan, I've seen this for many a year. But anyways, 22-8, I think the Mets got outscored. They had a 3-run lead in game 2, but again, I think this was an example of the pitching being like depleted. You had guys like Lucchesi and Reed Foley being unable to hold it, and stuff like that happens. And make no mistake, I don't necessarily think Luis Rojas is the best manager of this Mets squad. Like, I think time will really tell if that's the case, but I'm not going to blame him at all for this series, especially when you look at what happened against the Atlanta Braves. And I believe you were at the Monday game. Am I correct, John?
I was. It was interesting, and you could, like you were saying, you could criticize Rojas for a lot of things. I think the way he's sort of going about handling some of the injuries has definitely been favorable, in my opinion. And I'm not sure whether or not, I think it's smart with DeGrom to, send him to the IL, let him rehab, no issues with that. Yeah. He's the best player in the game, your best pitcher in the game, at least. You want him, especially with the deep push that they're planning on making. You want him 100%. I have no qualms with that. Maybe even like pitch count restriction for the first couple games back, whatever. You do you. But, Taijuan Walker, all right, I get it. But bringing up some of these young guys like Fargas, like Khalil Lee, I like them. They're high energy guys. They're great defenders, but the offense is certainly lacking, Yeah. And that's, I think, why they traded for Cameron Maybin for cash considerations. It made sense. You want to do something to bring in more offense, but I think this is kind of like it's telling to an extent because okay, like you've got Nito, who's been phenomenal as of late. You've got Pilar, who prior to the breaking his face was awesome. You got VR, who's been a stud. You've got the guy. Oh my God, the second baseman whose name I'm spacing on, but he's been good. Yes, he used to play short for the Reds. Yep, he's been good. So you've got these good players, but let's say what happens when those guys go down, because that's sort of where we're at. I mean, I saw with them putting Taijuan Walker on the IL, they're at 14 right now, and Pete Alonso is getting an MRI on his hand, might go up to 15. So that's a large number of guys to be missing. Especially when, yes, McNeil, Conforto, you've got some pretty premier guys in your offensive lineup, but, Walker, DeGrom, the only real two guys that we can definitively say in the rotation that we know are going to make their starts are Stroman and Peterson. So you're missing a lot, yet they're staying resilient. So I think maybe he's trying to give some of these young guys, by saddling some of the other people on the IL, this opportunity is that, okay, let's just say they play well. Steve Cohen has made it abundantly clear that he's willing to make moves. So if these guys show out and it's the deadline, people are going to recognize that they've been playing well. And you could make a push for, a Chris Bryant or, even someone more realistic. But, I think it's a showcase of sorts.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I said it a few episodes ago. I probably even said this in the episode where we last had Paul on. I honestly think, on paper, this might be one of the deepest Mets teams like I've ever seen. And obviously, this is coming from a hardcore pinstripe guy like myself, but like it's really deep. And you see how much a lot of these guys, such as what's his name? He has a weird last name. I'm going to butcher it. John Sway Fargas.
John Sway Fargas. Yeah.
Close name, actually.
John Sway.
Sway Fargas. He had a big hit too, didn't he? And you also have Jonathan Villar coming up big. Tomas Nido had a clutch home run in the second game of that series. That actually was the game that clinched it for the Mets. And, I saw a tweet that Howie Rose made. I know you guys love Howie Rose, so you'll probably appreciate me bringing this up.
How could you not?
He's an expert on baseball. Mad respect. He said that this was one of the more resilient Mets teams that he's ever seen. Now, obviously, it's only May, and it might be too early to judge. But, like, given the circumstances of what happened, how much stock do you take into that tweet? Like, do you really think they are as resilient as he's making them out to be, or is this just him like going off or like, sounding off on his own team?
Oh, I think he's straight on, honestly, to be completely honest with you. I think that this team is resilient, and they're proving that too with the amount of the bench players that are stepping up. That's been the key piece to all of this, has been like the bench players that have been stepping up, because everybody's been going down. We still took 2 out of 3 in Atlanta, and we almost swept the series yesterday. We made it very close, and we had an outfield of Maybin, Fargas, and Khalil Lee last night, with Maybin batting third. This team is resilient. Whoever has to step in has stepped up, and arguably more than the everyday players. There's the everyday players have been struggling a bit at times. Tomas Nido is now hitting better than James McCann. He's looked a lot better. Mazeika came up and has kind of been like a folk hero. There we go. Patrick.
Right on cue, Tom. Right on cue.
Mazeika's came up and has been like a folk hero, hit that bomb in Tampa Bay. Peraza's came up and has played tremendous defense. Is a decent clutch hitter. He had a 2 RBI double down the line last night. VR has been great. He gets clutch hits. Pilar was huge until he went down. Even Fargas too. Fargas had 2 hits and 1 big hit in Game 2 of the Braves series. So Khalil Lee has is I think 0 for 8 with 8 strikeouts to start the season. He's obviously not ready with the bat, but he's made 2 spectacular plays in right field: a diving catch and a catch right by the brick wall last night that saved a run that would have tied the game. They inevitably lost. But these guys are stepping up, whether it's with the glove or whether it's with the bat, and these guys are getting playing time, and it's huge. That's why we're winning, and I think it's going to be huge this weekend because we got 3 games against the Marlins, and then we got 4 games at home against Colorado, and then Atlanta comes to Citi Field to play 3 games next weekend, Memorial Weekend. This is the perfect time for a lot of players to be down because Marlins are well under 500. The Rockies are arguably the worst team in baseball, and we get to finish up our season series with them, and we get 4 games with them at Citi Field this upcoming week. So that's going to be big, and we just need we need to just capitalize on this, and these guys just need to keep stepping up. We just need to tread water until they come back. A lot of the guys who are on the IL right now too, like Conforto, McNeil, all those guys, they might be back after the minimum 10 days. There isn't too many serious injuries. I mean, we might not see Pilar for a while. That's kind of an obvious, and we might not. There's a couple of others that we might not see for a while. But Tanza still hasn't come back. But it's, for the most part, they're all they're really all just going to be out for like the minimum time. They're going to be out for the minimum 10 days. So, once they come back, things will be better. But these guys are just doing a good job holding down the fort for now.
Not only that, I mean, you also got to keep in mind, okay, like Davis, it seems like has been out for, the majority of the year. He's already started his rehab. Syndergaard, who, I don't think any of us expected him to be back this quick. He's already starting his rehab. Seth Lugo, probably the most important piece of the bullpen, started his rehab earlier this week, and Carrasco is probably going to be back by the end of June. So, keep in mind how well they've been doing prior to all the injuries. You're also factoring, you got to keep in mind that they were missing pieces prior to that, So full health, right at the midway point, I think that's really when they pump the jets,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I also want to piggyback on your comment about Jacob Vrong. I agree with you also that they're doing the right thing by resting him and making him skip a start and having him go on the IL. Like, if he felt a side tightness after one start and he felt it again and he had to get out early after one of them, I don't think you can really take a chance on that. It could end up getting worse. So I think the Mets, this is much different than what I've seen them do in years past, whereas if a player gets hurt, they'll just want them to keep play just so they can bring fans into the seats. I've seen countless stories of the Wilpons doing that in years past. I think the Mets are definitely handling Jacob deGrom the right way.
Yeah, right.
Now here's a silly question I want to ask you before I move on to my next segment. Rat or Raccoon? Which did you think it was?
Probably a Raccoon, honestly, because McNeely's been there for, a little bit longer. And don't get me wrong, I really like Lindor. I think, the thing that we've sort of seen about him, obviously the numbers aren't exactly where we'd like them to be, but he has been putting the ball in play and he's been hitting it hard. It's just sort of a matter of it's directly at people. And that's the easiest problem to fix. It's just time and patience, because you keep doing what you're doing, eventually they're going to fall. But I will say I'm siding with McNeil on this.
I completely agree with that. That's a big thing. Mets fans have to calm down a little bit about the Lindor stuff. A lot of Mets fans are overreacting a little bit right now. It's a new league. He's never played in the National League before. Brand new team, the number one market in the country that he's playing in now. He's got to get used to it. And it's the first month and a half of the season, going on to 2 months. And exactly just like you said, it's not like he's striking out every at bat. He's putting the ball in play. He's just not finding the gaps too. He's hitting the ball, and that's eventually going to change. That's the same thing with McNeil too. McNeil's batting 240, but he's putting the ball in play. Eventually, he's going to find the gaps. So that's what he always does. That's why he bets 310 every year. But Rat or Raccoon, I'm going to say Raccoon.
Yeah, it seemed to me that was just a big creature. I don't even know. I'm not even a fan of this team. I'm just going to say Raccoon as a guess because why not? But yeah, I agree. And Paul, I think you told me also you see Lindor as a good leader on the Mets squad. Is that true?
Oh, definitely. It's been night and day. He's our best leader since David Wright, I think. Jacob deGrom is our leader in many different ways, but he's very soft spoken, and it's difficult for a pitcher to be the kind of leader that every player can be. Like the captain of a team, and Lindor is the best presence we've had since David Wright retired. He really is. He changes. He brings a winning attitude even when he's not playing. That's what I love about him. He gets everybody hyped up. One of the things I love is that he's at every mound visit too. Even when it's just the catcher going out to talk to you, even when if it's McCann jogging out to talk to Taijuan Walker or Stroman or something, Lindor's always there. He's always joining in. He's in the middle of every conversation that's going on, and it's huge. And everybody loves him too. And, even if this McNeil Lindor thing was a bit of an argument that happened, that's good. Like, there's nothing wrong with that because McNeil has a fiery personality. Lindor has a fiery personality. So if they were both struggling, if they're both jawing back and forth at each other a little bit, a couple of days later, they were hugging each other in the press conferences. So it's totally and none of them came out with black eyes. So, there probably wasn't any punches thrown. If there was no Raccoon, there might have been a Raccoon. We have no idea. But it
could have been a rat.
It could have been a rat too, exactly. But yeah, Lindor is that's one of the big things you're paying for is his leadership and his winning personality. Because I mean, if you want to do any type of research, look back at his time in Cleveland and how he kind of just changed that organization and brought that team to the World Series in 2016. And he's just a winner. He influences everybody on the field, and he's got the perfect personality for the Mets. I
completely agree. Yeah. And one thing that you also got to factor in, he just radiates positivity. And that's the thing. He obviously he's not having the results he wants at the plate, but usually guys when they're failing on one side of the ball, it usually bleeds into the other side, and you see them, kind of just boot a couple balls accidentally, and they just sort of internalize that. And he doesn't seem to be doing that. Or if he is, he's putting on the best brave face I've ever seen, but he's radiating positivity. He's picking guys up when they're, struggling, which is exactly what you want. He's bringing a championship caliber pedigree to the team, which is, aside from Jacob deGrom, I really can't remember anyone else that was on the 2015 World Series team, So I think it's going to take a minute or two for him to adjust to New York because let's be real, Cleveland is not New York. When the Mets got Jay Bruce from the Reds at the trade deadline, it took him that entire remainder of the season to really find himself again. But then the following year he played significantly better than the year they acquired him. So it's going to take some time. There are going to be some growing pains. But one of the things I will say about it is, and complain about the length of the contract, the amount of the contract. We've got him for a while. He's got more than enough time to figure it out.
That's exactly it. We've got, everyone doesn't realize, even if he bats 240 this year, we got him for another 10 years. He's going to put up some 300 seasons, and he's going to get back to that 40 home run, 30 doubles a year. What he was doing in Cleveland, I don't have any doubts about that,
right,
at all. And that's. Watching him for all those years in Cleveland, and just if any Mets fans out there are still a little worried about it, go look at his career numbers. That's all I gotta say.
Right, the numbers don't lie. One thing I will say is let's say he does bat 240 this year. It seems like everyone their batting average is just taking a massive dip because of whatever the MLB decided to do with the balls. I mean, home runs are way down, and they're 6 official no hitters so far this year. So
yeah,
I mean, if it's universal, you can't. Get to that. I'll count it. I'll allow it. Yeah, I like Mad Bum.
Me too.
But I mean, look, if it's just an isolated incident, it's whatever. But it seems to be a league-wide phenomenon. So to fault one player for having their numbers down when everyone's numbers are down seems a little hypocritical to me.
No, for sure. And the league average combined, I think, is in the 220s or 230s. So if he were to bat 240 this year, he'd be above average. And right. It'd still be considered a down year for him. So that's right. It's kind of incredible to think about that.
It's so absurd though that's just the new status quo, or at least at the moment, that's what it is. And you could say maybe pitchers are doing something to increase spin rates or whatever. Doesn't appear that way.
No.
Just kind of seems to be the ball.